You ever been up in your tree stand, your saddle, and thought, man, what if I fall from here? This video, I'm gonna talk about all the ways you could fall out of your saddle. And it's more of a video just to be like, bring awareness to it, just so I don't want anybody to fall out of their saddle this year. There's a lot of ways you could fall out of a saddle, like, or a tree stand. When you're up there, and it's probably best not to think about this stuff when you're up there, but you get to looking around, there's a lot of fail points that could fail if you're not conscious of what you're doing up there. And I wanted to go over some of those things in this video today. So I got my platform set up here. I don't have my sticks on the tree because I wanted to do this at ground level. One of the most obvious things that I have personally done, and I think could be a potential for someone getting up in the stand in the dark or in the saddle in the dark, is putting the straps on your platform or your stand properly on your button here. If you accidentally kind of halfway put a strap over the button, you know, that could be extremely dangerous. That's what I've done in the past. A number of years ago, it's been a long time ago, I got up in the stand in the dark and I looked down after I'd set up and my strap was kind of half off one of my buttons. So make sure you have this part of your straps, the loops over your button, whatever that is. I call this a button here, and make sure that they are on there properly. Secondly, something that can happen is these straps, these pull straps or whatever your connection method is, like this is your lifeline for the most part, other than maybe what you got connected to the tree. But there is a good chance that over a number of years of using these straps, they're going to get worn out. Maybe you've nicked them a little bit. A lot of times I see a lot of guys, they won't put the strap on their stand or their platform properly, and it will actually get kind of up in here in the bat wings of the platforms or the stands, and that can wear out a strap. Now, these things are really durable, and they do surprise me how well they work, but you got to be careful. They'll also start to slip. After a lot of use, the buckle itself will start to slip. So check your buckles. Make sure they're all good to go. These things are cheap. I don't know, they're less than $10, I think. So just if you have any doubt with your pull straps, just get new ones, or your am steel, or whatever your flavor of climbing up in a tree is. So number one thing, make sure you get that platform on there properly, and make sure it's seated well. Make sure your strap's in good shape. There's some other obvious things with these platforms. There's not a whole lot that can really go wrong, but with tree stands, you obviously have your cables that hold the platform up. You know, you want to check those, make sure those are good. I know a lot of guys that leave permanent stands out. I've heard multiple times of those failing. They get rusty inside those cables that are coated in rubber, and then they're not as strong as they once were. You go to stand on your tree stand and whoop. Okay, so if you got a tree stand with cables, check that. Don't fall because of that. Okay, what else we got here? So I think, and don't quote me on this is stuff that I've heard or I'm making up in my head, but I think the number one reason for guys falling or gals falling is making the transition from the tree to your stand or your saddle platform. That is whenever you're probably the most vulnerable for falling, because a lot of times you're doing some kind of acrobatic move to get up in here. So if you're not comfortable with heights or you don't have a good hold on something, I would go ahead and just make sure you got an easy step into your stand or your platform. A lot of times if you put that top step even with your platform, that gives you a really nice transition into your platform or your stand. Secondly, man, in my opinion, and some of the old heads say that they feel less safe with a safety belt on. I think that's just silly. I think that's just them being stubborn in their own ways, but wear a dang safety belt. My friend Jason Sankoviak has a great video on how to make these things, and I'll link that in the description of this video over at Jason over at Traditional Bow Hunting Wilderness Podcast. Get you some type of a lineman's belt. So this essentially eliminates you from falling if you're getting into or out of your stand. Obviously, it goes without saying, you got to have a saddle or some kind of a harness on. But this particular one I have, this line is from the guys over at Latitude, and then this is a Kong duck with a carabiner that goes through it. super adjustable. I'm not going to go over this. Y'all know what this is. Use this. So always make sure that you have some type of a connection to the tree. If you're making a transition, especially from your sticks to your platform, make sure you're tied in. All you got to do, it's super easy. You just give yourself a little bit of slack and then raise the belt up the tree and then climb into your platform and then tighten yourself back up. And I can't really fall. Now I say that, but you can fall from these things, right? These are all mechanical devices. In fact, this year, I'm gonna take this off just to demonstrate here. This year, Ropeman had a recall on their Ropeman 1. It's not Ropeman, but it's Wild Country, I think is what they're called. But the Ropeman 1, which is not this one. The Ropeman is a very, very popular ascender. These are called ascenders. They had a recall. So these things can fail, and I think the recall was from them slipping. Also, with these ascenders, you can get the wrong rope for these, and they may not work as well as they should. So make sure you get the right diameter of rope with the right ascender. The Kong Duck is better for your smaller ropes, and then your Ropeman is better for your larger diameter ropes. This rope, it's a device. It can fail. Make sure that whenever you strap into your harness on the other side after you go around the tree, make sure it's strapped in and snug. Don't accidentally, halfway connect it or leave the gate open. Make sure that is on there nice and tight before you get into the saddle. If you have like a tree stand harness and it has like a different kind of loop on it, other than like this Latitude saddle, it has really nice big lineman's loops built into the saddle. Some of them don't have real big ones, they have real small ones, and that can be a problem. So make sure that you hook into your harness or your saddle properly. So we got into the stand or the saddle platform. Let me go ahead and throw this back around so I don't fall off this platform. Wouldn't that be something else if I just fell off this platform doing a saddle safety or a tree stand safety video? So you're up here, you're all strapped in. What do you do next? Well, I'm a big fan of never being not connected to the tree. Now I got my, all this behind me on my feet. This all can fail. And you got to realize that. So having a backup for yourself here with a lineman's rope is always good. Now if this would fail, I'm not going to do it this hard. You're probably going to get scraped up because a tree's a very abrasive surface, the bark on the tree. So you probably fall straight down and then into your, whatever. You probably just fall down into your saddle. Now, saddles are not, people act like saddles are this like the safest thing ever, and maybe they are safer than tree stands. I don't really have an opinion on that. I think both of them are inherently dangerous, but they're not a fall restraint. They don't have, your upper body's not supported, and a lot of saddles, as you can see with this one here, my lower body, my legs are not supported. So you have to be very, very aware of what you're doing. I think worst case scenario with the saddle, in my opinion, is that if you would fall and then hit your head or get knocked out somehow and not be able to kind of brace yourself on the tree and hold yourself up and then fall backwards and then you're hanging upside down, passed out or something, that would not be good. It wouldn't be good being hanging or passed out, but that would just be the worst case scenario. That's why all this stuff's important. And I think over the last handful of years, as saddles have gotten more popular, I think we've seen some more accidents come out of them. There's been, I think there's several more tree stand accidents than there are saddle accidents, but that's probably because in the grand scheme of the hunting industry, I think more people still use tree stands because all of your private land stuff and whatnot. So that number is probably skewed in that manner if you took statistics in business like I did. Anyway, secondly, this is what your tether that is going to connect you to the tree. I always put my tether on before I loosen my lineman's belt. So I'm completely supported here. As long as that lineman's belt is in proper shape, and the only thing you have to do with your ropes is just inspect them, make sure that they're in good shape, make sure there's no nicks or cuts. Rosie, stop. Sorry, my lab is chewing on a water bottle, which is one of her favorite things to do. I get strapped in here. I kind of tighten my rope up until it's tight enough where I got pressure on my line. Then I loosen up my belt and I'm hunting here. A bunch of things could go wrong with these ropes, and this is not the norm, right? Like, more than likely these things are going to last you a long time. But like, check if you got some kind of a knot here that you're like a Prusik style knot or whatever these knots are called. Make sure these are all in good working order. Make sure your carabiners are good. I always, with my lineman's or with my tether, I use a locking style carabiner, so nothing bad can happen there. I also make sure that I'm nice and sturdy before I go ahead and loosen my lineman's belt. Now, there's a couple things that you could do. I'm not a huge fan of leaving my lineman's belt on, but you could just leave this on and have kind of a secondary point of contact for the tree. I like to take mine off. I don't know what the answer is, but there's some other things that I don't know a lot of guys do that's probably a good idea, is to keep themselves safe. They make some kind of connection between this bridge and the rope again, to where if this fails or the carabiner fails, they're still safe. That's probably a really good idea to do. And man, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have made this video. I wouldn't have even thought about this video. But now, when I have 2 boys at home and a wife that needs me, it's something that I think about quite a bit. So you're pretty safe up here for the most part. And you're also not very safe. So you just got to be conscious of what you're doing up here. Another aspect of a saddle and a tree stand harness is make sure that on a saddle, your bridge, this is called your bridge of your saddle, make sure that's in good shape. These are all made of am steel. This stuff could pull a semi around. I think the breaking strength of these am steel is super high, but you got a lot of knots going on here. You got this knot, you got, well, can't remember what this is called, but whenever they connect the am steel together, that all needs to be in good shape. Now, I see online a lot on like the forums, they'll have some questions about like some fluffing on the tag end of these knots, and that's pretty normal to have fluffing on those. That's nothing to be afraid of. That's just the tag end of where they inserted the am steel together. So I did a horrible job of explaining that, but that's what that is. Something I do sometimes is to get rid of my extra rope. I'll actually take it and kind of double it up into my carabiner. Now this I don't do this very often, and then just tie me a knot here. But that would kind of back up your your bridge. Now, maybe that's not where I put it at, and I can't remember what I do it now. I'll be honest with you, I don't do it very often because it eliminates the ability to make kind of fast adjustments with your knot if you need to make adjustments with your rope. Now, I think another thing we have to think about here with safety in your saddles is when you're getting down, a couple when you're up here, just be conscious of where your feet are. That's all common sense stuff. You don't want to step off the end of this thing and be hanging here somewhere and all kinds of uncomfortable. But to get down, I always kind of reverse my setup, take my lineman's belt out of my little hip pocket, and then before I do anything, sorry Rosie, I put that onto my lineman's loops on my saddle, tighten it up, and then I'm free to take my tether off. Once my tether is loose and off, that's when I go ahead and take it off the tree, place that in my pocket, and then kind of loosen my belt up a little bit so I'm free to, I don't like my belt to be, I mean, if it makes you more comfortable to keep it super tight, that's probably the best way of going about it. But when you step down, you're losing length. So I always just kind of loosen it up to where I got a little bit of slack in it. I move it down, and then you step off into your first stick, and then I'm hanging from my first stick, hanging from the lineman's belt, and then that's whenever I take my platform off the tree and ascend down the tree itself. And then whenever after you've taken the platform off, always just keep this lineman's belt on. If you're worried about it and you're uncomfortable with heights, this right here can be your lifeline. and it can really change the way you climb and the way you think about climbing. So that's kind of all I have about how you could fall out of your tree stand or your saddle. So if you guys don't mind, just hit that subscribe button right there. All kinds of good videos coming out here in the near future. Deer season's almost here. There's another video if you want to watch that too. Let's go, Rosie girl.